Hello, everyone. I've got Omar here again, and we're going to be going through all the black cards, and Phyrexia all will be one. Starting with the commons, we've got Annihilating Glare, which is just a single black mana for a sorcery, and as an additional cost to cast a spell, pay 4 or sacrifice an artifact or creature, and you get to destroy target creature or planeswalker.
So yeah, this is really good. Maybe even good in a lot of like constructed game, I would say. Because yeah, pay one to just kill. I know it's in sorcery, so I guess it's maybe not as good as an instant kill.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah, for
think
draft, you
just in constructed, I think this is too bad. Like you don't need to be sacrificing a creature to kill something for cheap in constructed, you know?
that's fair. But
Um,
I don't know. I feel like there are a lot of times where you really need to be mana efficient. I don't know.
sure.
Who knows?
There's already options though, I feel. Like if you just pay 2 mana, you can kill
All right,
anything with no cost at
that's
instant
true.
speed. Um,
Yeah. I guess, yeah. So in draft, you probably want to take every removal you can, right? And this is a 1 mana removal, or I guess a 5 mana removal, which sometimes you're desperate enough that you'd even take that.
yeah.
That's how I feel, at least. So I would say for draft, I would definitely take this card if I see it. It's at least a 6.
Okay, cool. I was gonna give it a 7 just because like there's lots of sacrifice sort of stuff going on in this set, and like just a single mana and like sacrificing a might to kill a creature is pretty great at common. So yeah, I'll give that a 7. And yeah, being able to just pay 5 is a big upside. Like we got Bone Splinters a while ago, where like you don't get to choose, and that's a lot worse than this. I feel like, and you get to sacrifice possibly an artifact too. I don't know. It's flexible. It's good. I think you would want this most of the time. All right, moving on to Anoint with Affliction. 1 and a black for an instant. Exile target creature if it has mana value 3 or less, or just exile any creature if your opponent has 3 or more poison counters.
Like the previous card, I would say that you want to take any removal that you can find. It is instant, but I would say let's assume you're going to probably play this not corrupted. I know corruption is a big theme in this set, but maybe I correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're playing removal, you're trying to maybe catch up to your opponent, you might not be able to have corrupted your opponent yet.
Maybe like if you were off
And
to a
so I,
slow start and weren't able to get something out,
mhm.
sure. I think it's still good even if you
so I,
don't get the corrupted though.
yeah, so the mana value 3 or less makes it worse. That said, I know that this set has a lot of indestructibles, so that exile could be huge. That said, of course, it's mythics, so what are the chances your opponent gets one of those?
Yeah,
So,
and like yeah.
yeah, I would put this at 5. I would play it less likely than the other removal.
Okay, I think this is also like at least a 7, maybe an 8. Because like even just 2 mana exile mana value 3 or less instant speed, like that's already good, I would say. Um, sure, it can't get the top end, but it's still like instant speed cheap, might even save you a bit of tempo, killing something slightly more expensive. And then hey, that corrupted. Like if you're a deck trying to kill the opponent with poison or just has a lot of ways to give the opponent poison, like exile anything for 2 mana is excellent. So I guess I put the number somewhere between the two. Um, yeah, I think it's good. All right, next we've got Blight Belly Rat, which is 1 and a black for a 2/2 creature Phyrexian rat with Toxic 1, and when it dies, proliferate.
So yeah, I think this is a good 2 drop. I might even put it at a 7.
7. Okay.
You get to yeah. It's a 2 mana 2/2, has toxic 1, and when it dies, you get to proliferate. It's a decent 2 mana. Maybe seven's too much. 6.5. It's just that I put too many things at 6. So, or no, I put one thing at 6. You know what? It's a 6 actually. It's
Okay.
not. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking about just giving it like a 5. Because, like, okay, 2 2 for 2, that's fine. Toxic 1, okay, that's fine. But, like, if you're a toxic deck, you just, like, shouldn't be playing any creature that doesn't have toxic unless it's, like, really good. So I guess, I don't know, it's not that much of an upside, I guess. Like, that's just kind of expected. And the proliferate, since it happens when it dies, you, like, don't have as much control over when that happens. And I think a lot of the time proliferates just like it's sometimes good, but a lot of the time it's just kind of whatever. I'm gonna raise it slightly to 5.5 in the right like toxic maybe aggro deck. I think outside of toxic aggro it's less good. Still okay. Alright, next we've got Bone Picker's Scourge for 2 and a black. It's a 2/2 creature Phyrexian imp with flying. And if your opponent is corrupted, it has Death Touch and Lifelink.
Really good. 3 mana 2/2 flying. Already good. And assuming you're playing for corrupted, you're playing for poison counters, that extra death touch lifelink, that getting it would be huge probably.
Mm-hmm.
So now this is a 7, I would say.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like I think 2/2 flying Death Touch Lifelink for 3 definitely would be like a 7. I think this is like a bit less just because you have to corrupt the opponent, and like it's a bit weird because like if you're a toxic deck trying to win with poison, like this doesn't have toxic, so it's not helping you win through poison. Um, and like yes, it can still trade with anything, and it's a good life swing with the life link if you're just attacking every turn. But it's like this is a better fit in like a deck that's just playing enough toxic to like corrupt the opponent and then take advantage of that. Which like that's definitely a way to build your deck. I just think it doesn't like quite fit every strategy too well, so I'm just gonna give that a 6. All right, next we have Cruel Grimnark for 5 and a black. 5/5 creature Phyrexian cleric with Death Touch, and when it enters the battlefield, each opponent discards a card, and if they can't, you gain 4 life.
Hmm. I feel like when you don't necessarily guarantee a lot of card draw, discarding a card is huge, but it's also at 6. It's late game, so which means you would probably have a smaller hand and you're holding certain cards. I'd say this is a really good card, but it's also really on the high end. I don't know how often games last to the point where you get to cast this card, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would give it I don't know, a 4. I'm not that excited about it.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. It is 6 mana. And like it's a big 5/5. I mean the death touch is weird on a big creature, like you could almost ignore it. Um and yeah, it does discard a card, but like if you're whenever you're discarding just one card, people so often just have like a throwaway card. But also sometimes they don't. When that happens, like, it trades for a card, or like it's basically a 2 for 1 at that point, and you get this like 5/5. It's big. So I think if you just want, like, sometimes you just want something for your upper curve, and like this could be it. So I'll give it a 5. I think it's fine. All right. So next we have Cutthroat Centurion, which is 2 and a black for a 2/2 artifact creature, Phyrexian warrior. And it can sacrifice another artifact or creature to get +2/+2 until the end of the turn, but only once each turn.
So as we've already talked, there's probably a lot of artifacts and creatures. Do you think there's a lot of treasure or like token artifact generation?
I mean, the closest thing is just the mites, I think.
Hmm. So I think this is really good, as I've mentioned before, just the threat that at any time you can give it a +2/+2. Though also maybe an opponent would bait you to, I don't know. I like this card. I don't know how much I like it. I would give it a 5.
Five. Okay, yeah. I don't know if it's like 4 or a 5 to me. It's like it's just so small if you don't sacrifice stuff. I don't want to have to sacrifice stuff to make my creatures have okay stats. And like the fact that it's only once per turn is such a bummer. Like if you could do this multiple times
Mhm.
per turn, then like it would actually be scary because you could just swing with it and like if your opponent doesn't block it, you could just like sacrifice your board and do it and just kill them. Um,
Mhm.
so uh, it's just so costly for like just a temporary buff. So I'm gonna give it a 4. I'm not excited about it. All right, next we have Duress, reprinted for the 1000th time. Black mana for a sorcery. Target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-creature, non-land card from it, and that player discards that card.
If you see this, you should probably play it, right?
Oh,
I don't know. I know it's a non-creature, non-land, but and I know creatures are the dominant card type outside of lands in draft, but a lot of the non-creature, non-land cards could be the game breakers, if that makes any sense.
mm-hmm.
So just get rid of one of them from your opponent's hand. That card that buffs the whole board, for instance, or that tutor, or that large burn spell that they're gonna save up till late game.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I would give this an a 7.
Okay. I feel like this is bad in draft because it's just way too likely to miss. Like the vast majority of cards are going to be creatures, and I think like you're just going to miss way too often. It's going to be sad. Like I've tried to play with this before in drafts, and it's too likely to miss. In constructed, I think it's a lot better because you're just more likely to be able to hit something. People are trying to set up combos with non creatures. Um, but I think even in draft, you're pretty likely to hit something, and yeah, you just take out their removal spell, take out their like weird artifact that's they're synergizing around or whatever. So like I still think you could play it, and like my guess is that you'll have something to hit like 70% of the time. So that's not too bad, but I still would
Mhm.
rather not play any of these, honestly. All right, next we have Fleshless Gladiator, which is 1 and a black for a 2/2 creature, Phyrexian skeleton. And if your opponent's corrupted, you can pay 2 and a black to return this from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped, and you lose 1 life.
This is really good, and they call it aristocrat for and like themed. I don't know,
Yeah, like
sacrificing creatures.
aristocrat, sacrifice, whatchamacallit.
Hmm.
Yeah, sure.
And if you're playing poison counters aristocrat, this is a sacrifice outlet. So is outlet the card you sacrifice, or is an outlet the benefit of
No, I
sacrificing?
think I think outlet is more like what you use to sacrifice for value, maybe? Like this is like sacrifice
Okay.
fodder, I would say.
Okay. So this is a good sacrifice fodder. Um, if you're playing those strategies, you want to get this card. You want to pick this card if you see it. And we've seen that there are some payoffs even in commons already.
Hmm.
So for those strategies, I would say this is a 7.
All right.
I'm liking I'm liking a lot of the cards I see in black, compared to
Yeah,
blue.
I feel like this is more meh, like partly because it's a corrupted card, so you play this in like a deck that wants to poison the opponent, but it doesn't have toxic itself, so it's like kind of an
Mm,
awkward two drop, you know. And
hmm
then like to get much out of that ability, you also need like external um, enablers. So I'm just gonna give it a 5. I think it takes some work. All right, next we have Gulping Scrap Trap, which is 4 and a black for a 4/4 creature for Phyrexian Horror. When it enters the battlefield or dies, proliferate.
No, I think this is more interesting than that other 6 mana creature. Because if you're playing a poison counter strategy, you get to give 2 poison counters, probably, possibly. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't like whether it dies or not. I don't know. Sometimes it will, sometimes it won't.
That's true, but it's at least one proliferate. So I would say this is nice. It's a it's a 5.
Yeah, I feel like that's about where I'm at too. Like the stats are slightly small, but also you don't necessarily expect the stats to be big in black. And the proliferate, yeah,
Mhm.
it grows their poison count, potentially adds oil counters to your stuff. Yeah, like if you care about the counters, like this is gonna be a perfectly reasonable card to play at 5. You'll get some value out of it. So yeah, I'd say it's pretty average, decent. All right, next we have Infectious Inquiry, which is 2 and a black for a sorcery, which just says you draw 2 cards and you lose 2 life, and each opponent gets a poison counter.
Mm. Like I know is 3. I think 3 mana is too much for the first line in
I
constructed.
yeah, I mean there's Sign in
Mm,
Blood for 2 mana, but like that's one card. Honestly,
mm,
that's much more efficient than
mm,
you usually get in black,
mm.
and they get the poison counter.
Yeah. But yeah, the poison counter. I think you'd probably really want to put this card. Like, it doesn't really matter too much what your strategy is. I mean, I guess you are playing infect or poison. Um, it's card advantage. It's not too expensive. I would put it at an 8.
8.
I
Wow.
pick this card if you see it. Yeah.
I was only gonna give this like a 5, just because it's 3 mana.
Mm,
It doesn't affect the board. It's your classic kind of bad when you're
mhm,
too far behind because it's just not helping you stabilize at all, and it's even hurting you. Um,
mhm.
but yeah, if you have the breathing room to cast it, it gives you more resources in the long game. And the poison counter, like, helps you get to corrupted to do, all that nasty stuff we see corrupted cards do in this format. So yeah, I mean, I think it's fine. Definitely, if you're playing it, it's pretty reasonable. All right, next we have Offer Immortality. For 1 and a black, target creature gets Death Touch and Indestructible until end of turn.
This is really good, right?
Yeah, I think it's pretty good.
You can just Yeah. So I would give this an 8.
8. Okay, I'm not gonna give it an 8 because like it's a combat trick. That means it's like inherently situational. But like that combination of Death Touch and Indestructible, like that means you are winning any combat whatsoever, and you
Yeah.
can win against even just like removal spells. So like that's really good. I mean, it's better than you usually get from a combat trick. I'm gonna say 6.5. Yeah, I think if you're any black deck, you probably want this. It's good on defense, it's good on offense. If you just have the 2 mana up, it's really likely if there's some combat that happens or like almost anything that happens, it's gonna be useful. Pestilent Siphoner. 1 and a black for a 1/1 creature Phyrexian insect with flying and toxic 1.
Hmm. I mean, this is also a good 2 drop, especially if you're playing toxic, right?
Yeah.
So this is a 7.
Yeah, I'm thinking around I think 7's about right. Like you just play it so cheap, It's probably getting by a few times. Like I feel like this card alone could just fast track you right to corrupted and just turn on all your cards, you know? That's pretty huge. And hey, it's killing them.
Mhm.
If you're a toxic deck and like I think sort of black and green are the colors that are actually trying to win with toxic. This definitely does that. Um, yeah, I think it's great. All right, next we have Shuldred's Head Cleaver. For 3 and a black, it's a 2/4 creature Phyrexian warrior with menace and toxic 2.
Mm. Yeah, that menace and toxic combo is pretty nice, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would say this is not a bad 4 drop if you're playing for toxic. Not that great either. It's it's a fine card. I would give it a 5.
Sure. I'm gonna give it a 6, just because I was playing against this and it felt like it was pretty good against me. Just like um, that 2/4 body, like seems kind of small, but like that much toughness kind of shuts down the early game. Like there's not many even anything smaller than a 4 drop that can really get past that. And then yeah, if you're trying to put toxic 2, that's like a fifth of your opponent's health total if you go and buy poison. In just one hit, and it's menace, it's hard to hit. This gets you pretty quickly to corrupted potentially. I mean, yeah, if your opponent has the right creatures out and they can just double block this, it's not looking good. But hey, that's why you've got, um, offer immortality to give it death touch and indestructible and get the 2-for-1,
Mm-hmm.
turn the combat tricks into
Mm-hmm.
huge value. So yeah, I think it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
good. All right, next we have Stinging Hive Master for 2 and a black. It's a 3/2 creature Phyrexian Warlock with Toxic 1, and when it dies, you get a Might.
Hmm. So, I mean, the fact that when it dies you get another creature, that's classic aristocrat stuff, right?
Yeah,
So, I would say this might be good, but 3 mana, 3 mana, 3/2 toxic one. I don't know. Maybe it's the power level of this set just feels stronger than other sets that I've drafted. That's why I'm like putting everything on the higher end.
it's weird. It's
But
like
like,
I
yeah,
feel like the toxic aspect on certain cards, like it feels like they're giving you extra, but it's not really, Like if you
um,
care about toxic, maybe you're trying to win with toxic. It's like doing parallel win conditions. It's like milling the opponent. Like,
mhm,
if you're hitting the opponent and
yeah.
milling them, you're really only going to kill them one of those ways. So it's not like you're getting a lot of extra value. You know what I'm saying?
It, I mean, yeah, but also it could be you're just going for corrupted,
Yeah.
and that's that.
Yeah, I
And we've
think the
seen a lot
more
of payoff.
yeah, the more toxic creatures you're playing, the easier you're going to get corrupted. I think every creature you have that has toxic is definitely like a boon to your deck.
Mhm. Um, I would give this a 5 again. It's average.
Yeah, sure.
I have yet to see bad cards. Well, I've seen a few, but
Yeah, I think I'm gonna give this like a 5.5. Maybe it's like the slightest bit above average because you get those 2 creatures to sacrifice. Stats or whatever. It's fine. All right, next we have Testament Bearer, which is 3 and a black for a 4/1 creature Phyrexian warrior. And when it dies, you look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one in your hand, the rest in the graveyard.
I've not seen a lot of graveyard interaction this set, or have we seen in blue? I don't think so.
Yeah, there's not a ton. I don't get the sense that graveyard is a big focus.
And other than that, let's just say it's a filter and card draw, right? It dies
Yeah.
card draw. So it's a card neutral kind of card. No, I don't like this at all. I would give it a 3.
Okay. I was just playing with this card, And I kind of like it. I think it's like better than it looks because like yes. So the 4/1 body, it dies to anything,
Mm,
but at the same time, 4 power makes it a pretty good blocker. Um,
mm,
and like sort of like the higher power, you could say like the more potential the creature has to make good trades. And even if it
mm.
dies, you're still like getting the best card from the top three. So like, and it was going around late. Like I think people don't think it's good, um, but I kind of think it's good. Like you just, you know, use it for any sort of dumb trade, and then you still get something else. So I kind of want to
Mm,
give it like a 6. I don't know. That maybe that's too much, but like I liked it.
mm.
All right. So next we have Vraska's Fall, which is 2 and a black for an instant. It says each opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker and gets a poison counter.
Mm. Making opponents choose who to sacrifice is not had it always work out well, with like rare exceptions. So a 4.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. Like, sacrifice removal is just, they have any random might or whatever, and then suddenly it's like the worst removal spell ever. Um, at least they get a poison counter, but I still kind of don't like it. And we've seen those really good removal in black, so I'll go with the 4 as well.
Mm.
All right, next we have Whisper of the Dross, which is a single black mana for an instant. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. Proliferate.
No, I don't know. This is even worse for me. I mean, it could make certain trades better. So this is just like giving your own creature a +1/+1 kind of, right?
And you can go and,
And
shoot any
and
1 toughness creature.
yeah. So maybe if you're desperately looking for cards to play, or you really want to go for that poison counter win and you want every proliferate that you see. But no, it's a 3. I'm sure there are
Yeah,
better cards that you can find.
yeah, I feel like it is kind of bad. It's just not much minus. It's going to be tough to get value out of it. Not impossible, like pretty reasonable to sometimes get value out of it, but it's just not making it easy for you. All right, on to the uncommons. We've got Ambulatory Edifice, which is 2 and a black for a 3/2 artifact creature for Phyrexian Construct. And when it enters the battlefield, you can pay 2 life. When you do, target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn.
Hmm. Like, I'm not too excited about this. It's a 3 mana 3/2, and sure you can get a -1/-1, which could, I don't know, it could do some stuff. But if you're the way I'd play it is like if you're looking for artifact creatures or specifically artifacts, yeah, that this would be a card I'd probably pick. Otherwise, honestly, I don't know. Um, I'd go with a 4.
Or, okay, I think this card's pretty good. Like, 3/2 for 3, sure, that's not great. But 3/2 for 3 that kills a thing? Like, I think it's pretty likely you'll kill a thing. And that's kind of value. Like, I think that all adds up to, like, maybe not the biggest blowout of a 2-for-1 ever, but, like, basically a 2-for-1. So I'll give it a 6. All right, next we've got Bilious Skull Dweller, which is single black mana for a 1/1 creature Phyrexian insect with Death Touch and Toxic 1.
I don't know. This is good. Like it acts like a, what do they call that? Those rats that had death
Yeah,
touch
I'm
that are
trying to
1/1.
remember. There's lots of can't remember the name, but yeah.
But better. You can possibly pull off toxic infect strats. So I would go with Like if I don't have a lot of one drops, I would put this at a 7.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking 7 too. Like, this is great to just get out on turn one. It starts hitting the opponent for toxic, and it's usually going to trade up with something. On the defense, it's kind of even better because no one's going to want to swing their actual threats into it. So just sitting there, like, kind of stops your opponent from attacking. Yeah, it's good. All right, next we've got Chittering Skitterling, which is 2 and a black for, it's a fun name, for a 1/4 creature Phyrexian rat. Uh, with Corrupted, sacrifice an artifact or creature, draw a card.
Mm. So the fact that that's a corrupted ability where you need 3 or more poison counters is what kind of lowers it in my list, I'll just say. Like, obviously, sacrifice an artifact creature, draw a card is really, really, really busted good. Like, even if there were like a mana cost to it, I don't know. Like, this is really good if you can get, if you're planning and you on and can get those 3 poison counters, especially early, because that's when you want to start your draw engine.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're doing a toxic strategy, this is really good. Otherwise, no, it's it's not. I would give it a 5.5.
Okay, I think this is like amazing. I mean, like obviously, like you said, like if they just printed 1/4 for 3, sacrifice an artifact or creature, draw a card with no cost, like that would be so busted. It would be in like all kinds
That
of
would be a
decks and
10.
all kinds of formats. It'd be crazy. It would like break things. And this, it does have that text on it still. You just have to get them corrupted first. And like even in this limited format, like I think this is one of the best possible like sacrifice enablers, maybe except for at rare or something. So I'll give this like an 8. Uh seems pretty crazy. Just like sacrifice like 1/1, what's that? I forget the name of that 1/1 white card that like makes a might. Okay, that's 1 mana, draw 2 cards now. Like, okay, that's kind of ridiculous. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So next we have Drown in Ichor, which is 1 and a black for a sorcery. Target creature gets -4/-4 until end of turn. Proliferate.
A 7, yeah, no, a 7 or an 8. I would say 7.5 then. It's a removal. It proliferates and all for 2 mana at sorcery speed, but still.
Yeah, like I think this is great. Like -4/-4 for 2 mana, like that can kill stuff much more expensive than 2 mana. And hey, yeah, proliferate for free. That's an extra toxic, that's extra oil counters and all your stuff. I went ahead and like put this in my Super Friends Brawl deck because removal, put a loyalty on all my planeswalkers, like good even in that sort of thing. I think this is like an 8. Yeah, we're pretty close there. All right, next we've got Feed the Infection for 3 and a black, which is a sorcery. You draw 3 cards and you lose 3 life. And Corrupted, each opponent loses 3 life also.
You don't even need that corrupted section. This is a really good card, in my opinion. So I would say this is an 8.
Hey, yeah.
Honestly, I
So,
might even go higher. I would say it's a
okay.
9.
Okay, cool.
As in,
I
as in,
don't.
I would.
Hmm.
Oh, sorry. As in, I would definitely pick this if I see it. Like,
Okay. Yeah, I don't think it's quite that high. Yes, it's like efficient card draw, but also losing 3 life, kind of a big deal sometimes. And you're doing 4 mana to not affect the board. And yes, you also make your opponent lose 3 life if they're corrupted, but that's like kind of like just a little asterisk on the card more than anything. Um,
Hmm.
I'm gonna go 6.5, just because it's only card draw, even if it's pretty good card draw. All right, next we've got Necrogen Communion, which is 1 and a black for an enchantment aura. Enchant creature you control. Enchanted creature has toxic 2, and when it dies, return that card to the battlefield under your control.
I would I would put this at a 7.
Okay, what's your reasoning?
So, first of all, like, yeah, it's 2 mana. You get that toxic too. That could help you with your toxic strategies if that's what you're playing. But it's preemptively just spending the 2 mana, and now your whatever that big creature that you're trying to protect will be protected. You know,
Hmm.
it could be really good in draft where you don't know if your opponent's gonna have that many removals or whatnot, or maybe know to deal with enchantments. You know, people don't play that many enchantment and art. Well, no, they do, but people might not be playing that many enchantment removals, in draft.
Hmm.
So if they kill your creature, it comes back,
I mean, my problem
and
with
just
oh,
cast it on.
go ahead.
Oh well, I'm basically
Okay. So, uh, I mean, my problem with this is just that a lot of removal doesn't kill. There's auras that tap. There's exile. Um, and a lot of the time, this isn't gonna keep your creature alive. So it's kind of against a lot of opponents. It's really just toxic 2 for 2. And in the right deck, that could still be all right. Um, So I'm just gonna give it a 5. And yeah, if you're against an opponent that's actually gonna kill it, like if you're also against black, or if you're just gonna like use it on a blocking creature or something that's a bit like within your control, this makes a bit more sense. But I think it's opponent dependent. All right, next we have Necrosquito, which is 3 and a black for a 0/0 creature, Phyrexian insect with flying. Enters the battlefield with 2 oil counters on it. It gets +1/+1 for each oil counter on it. Whenever another creature or artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put an oil counter on it. On
done. Okay,
Necrosquito.
this is yeah, this is really good. It's a 4 mana 2/2 at first, but anytime you proliferate, it grows. Anytime a creature or an artifact goes into the graveyard, which could be a lot in, as we've seen, there are creature and sacrifice, artifact sacrifice in this deck. It'll grow. So I think this could potentially, in the right deck, be like a decisive card that's gonna win you the game.
Yeah, like it doesn't even say
So
non-token or anything. You can sacrifice your mites to this, or not
mhm,
to this, but like with this on the board and just grow
yeah,
this a lot.
8,
8, yeah,
yeah.
maybe. I do
Mhm.
sometimes I feel like it's going to be actually hard to grow, like if you don't have the enablers, but it doesn't take much to make this really big. Um,
Mhm.
I'll give it a 7.5. Yeah, 73 out of 10. Uh, but those wings don't really look like they'd work, if you ask me.
Mhm.
Uh, all right, next we have Nimrazor Paladin, which is 4 and a black for a 4/4 creature Phyrexian Knight with Toxic 2. When it enters the battlefield, return target creature card mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to your hand.
Okay, so I'm not too excited by this. It's a 5 mana 4/4, and sure, you do get to get a 3 mana of like, hmm. At some, is this is just basically that, yeah, if it enters the battlefield, you choose a card from your graveyard, right? It's like card advantage, not card neutral in some sense.
And it's kind of a two for
I
one, because like you get the body and you get the other
mm,
creature.
I see. You still need to pay for the other creature though. So uh it's good, but I don't know if it's great. I would put a 6 on it.
It's okay. I think this is like value. It's 4/4
Mm,
toxic too. It's pretty big. Gives a decent amount of toxic. and you get a creature out of it. Like, I don't know. It's just value. So I'm going to give it a 7. I think any deck would really want
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
All right, next we've got Ravenous Necro Titan, which is 2 black black for a 6/6 creature Phyrexian horror with Corrupted. When it enters the battlefield, sacrifice a creature. Okay, sorry. Normally, when it enters, you have to sacrifice a creature unless your opponent is corrupted.
Hmm. So if you're playing a sacrifice deck, or if you're playing it in, well, let's assume I would only play this if I'm playing a sacrifice deck, regardless if I plan on getting my opponent corrupted or not, because you don't know how quickly you're going to be able to do that.
Yeah, it's pretty
So I would
probably tough
say,
to like on curve this without having to sacrifice a
yeah,
creature.
exactly. So, but it is a 6/6 for 4. Um, if you do have a lot of token generation or a lot of sacrifice fodder, I definitely play this. Otherwise, I'd probably not. In which case, I think I would say this is a 6.
Okay, yeah, I mean it is in the end it's just a 6/6 and yes, 6/6 is going to be bigger than 95% of things. So like that is good. Even if I had to just sacrifice a creature to get that, like just the board dominance, like nobody's going to attack through that. It's so big. Like it just is going to lock down the board. So like I guess I'm going to put that at a 7. It's still nothing too special. It's not going to like necessarily attack. I mean, yes, it's big, but like it's not evasive. And if they have a big board full of stuff, you're not going to want to attack into that with this. So it's kind of one of those creatures that's still just going to get caught in a gridlock eventually. But still, stats really big. So I'll give that a 7. All right, next we have Scheming Aspirant, which is 1 and a black for a 1/3 creature, Phyrexian Advisor, with whenever you proliferate, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life.
Yeah, I don't see you proliferating in draft that often that this actually matters. Sure, it's a 1/3. It can probably early on block a lot of attacks, you know, but I don't know. This card does not excite me at all. I would give it a 3.
3? Okay, I think this card is really good. Like,
Hmm.
there's a lot of incidental proliferate. If you just did this like twice, I would say that makes this a good creature, like pretty dang good. Just that's a lot of drain.
Hmm.
And the more cards you draw,
Hmm.
like eventually you're just gonna keep draining. Um, I mean, you need a certain kind of deck, but like you build your deck right where like the proliferate doesn't, just trigger this. It's also maybe adding more poison
Hmm.
counters, more oil counters, and built right, this can work pretty well, I feel like. I'm going to give it a 6.5.
Yeah, but I'll just ask, if you're trying to build right, how likely are you to be able to find the cards that will proliferate you that often?
There's a lot of proliferate at common. Um, and yeah, you're not going to
Yeah.
have like tons and tons, but it's also a 1/3. It blocks small stuff, and then you're
Mhm.
draining. I don't know. And like, I guess
Mhm.
this isn't really the best fit necessarily in like a um, poison, kill you with poison kind of deck. Because, I don't know, it's draining with life, yada yada. So it's a little bit conflicted maybe, but I think if you have like a gridlock, this can slowly drain. And it also, like, gains you life just to stay alive while you're trying to do whatever. So I don't know.
Mhm.
All right, next we've got Sheoldred's Edict, which is 1 and a black for an instant, and you choose one. Each opponent sacrifices a non-token creature. Each opponent sacrifices a creature token, or each opponent sacrifices a planeswalker.
Hmm. The fact that the opponent gets to choose what to sacrifice
does not make this that exciting. But, if you're desperate for removal and this is what you find, I'd take it.
Yeah, I'd say it's like a
Um,
lot better
yeah.
than like the other sacrifice card we saw though.
hmm I don't know. I'd give this a 5.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about that. Yeah, like if they have, at least you get to choose non-tokens, so like their random mites aren't gonna just screw with you. Um, so yeah, it can probably sometimes trade for a more expensive or similarly expensive creature. Also, kind of importantly, actually, like each point of sacrifice is a planeswalker. Like that might sound niche and limited, but like there's a lot of just like planeswalkers at rare instead of mythic rare in this set. Um,
Hmm.
so you're gonna see more than your standard amount of planeswalkers, and obviously they're gonna have no choice when it comes to sacrificing a planeswalker. So uh, I am just gonna say 5.5. Or no, I'm just gonna say 5. I think that's about right. All right. Next we have Vat Emergence, which is 4 and a black for a sorcery. Put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. Proliferate.
So, um, well, I like this more than the put a creature into your hand. Obviously, it depends on the strategy here. I haven't seen a lot of draw discard in black in in here. So it's not necessarily that you're going to be putting something big or something that you like in your graveyard, but it's a resurrection spell. You might benefit from that if, like, you play a card, your opponent then removes it. Plus, you get to proliferate, so that could also be good. I'd give this a 6.5. I like it.
Yeah, like this type of reanimation thing is usually pretty good and limited. Like you get the
Mhm.
best choice of all of the things that have died and or, been milled, but not that mill is a big thing. Um, yeah, like it's gonna tend to give you like, if you have your bombs, this is like insurance, they kill the bomb, you get it back. Or, you killed their bomb, now it's your bomb. It's like pretty useful for that. So yeah, I'll go like 7. It's good.
Oh, I missed it's from a graveyard.
Yeah, from any graveyard, not
If
just
it's from
yours.
any, well, that would put me at like maybe an 8, honestly.
Okay, cool. All right, next we have Vat of Rebirth, which is a black mana for an artifact. And whenever another artifact or creature you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put an oil counter on it. And you can pay 2 and a black and tap it to remove 4 oil counters from it and return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield.
Yeah, no, I don't see how this could be good in limited. Like, how often are you going to be able to put the oil counters on this? I know it's every time a creature or an artifact you have and that dies or gets destroyed, but I don't know if you would be able to generate a lot of like sacrifice fodder engine or something like that in limited, or guarantee that you're going to be able to pull it off.
Yeah.
So in like limited, yeah, I wouldn't pick this card. I wouldn't gamble on trying to go for this strategy and think that I'm going to pull it off. It's a it's another 3 for me. Now,
Yeah.
in constructed, I'd be way more excited about this card, but yeah.
Yeah. Like, I'm kind of with you. Like, if we compare it to Vat Emergence, it's like so much more work. It can't even return your opponent's cards to the battlefield under your control. And like, if you're in a very synergistic deck, you might be able to do it once, but I highly doubt you're going to be able to do it twice. And yeah, that's kind of makes this card bad. So yeah, I'll say 4 only because maybe someone could have a really synergistic deck and I don't know. Like the 4 is like in a deck where you could consistently do this one time. So
Hmm.
still kind of meh. All right, on to the rares. We've got Archfiend of the Dross, which is 2 black black for a 6/6 creature Phyrexian demon with flying. It enters with 4 oil counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, you remove an oil counter from it, and if it has no oil counters on it, you lose the game. And it also says whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, its controller loses 2 life.
I like this card, even if I don't know if it's a good card or not in Limited, but I like it. I might pick it just because it seems more fun, you know? It's a 6/6 flying. Like this has a if this is on the field, you have a really good chance of winning. And the four oil counters means just that if you're not proliferating, you have 4 turns. That might be enough,
Hmm.
you know? Or it might not, who knows? So yeah, worst case your opponent blocks the 6/6 flying with like chump blocks it for some attacks. Each time they do it, they lose 2 life, right?
Yeah, and there's not like flying token generation as far as I know, so like they're not going to be able to block forever. They're going to run out of chumps pretty quickly.
Yeah, this is a 9 in limited. I'd
Oof.
really like to pick that if it's on the
Yeah.
corner.
This is such a hard card because it's like inherently so risky and like but yeah, you can't deny like 6/6 flying for 4 mana that also makes your opponent lose 2 life when their creature dies. Like that's absurd. But then, it says lose the game on it. And if they just so much as enchant it so it can't attack or block, like that just kind of sucks. But even then, like you could actually build your deck around this like really synergistically, play lots of proliferate to get more oil counters on there, sacrifice it to like that removal spell at common, things like that, or just sacrifice to anything if you really need to. So like if you have a really sacrifice centric deck, like the downside barely even exists. Okay, I'll give it a 9 too. Sure. But that's like assuming you built it right, and a lot of the time you're not gonna. It's just gonna make you lose the game. So just keep that in mind. All right, next we've got Black Sun's Twilight, which is X and a black for an instant. Up to 1 target creature gets -X until end of turn. If X is 5 or more, return a creature card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped.
It's not that good if you don't get that X=5, I think. I mean, it's not bad, but still. But if you do get that X=5, I feel like this is really good. So honestly, I would put it at a 7. I'd strongly consider getting it.
Mm-hmm.
Reanimate removal and reanimate all in one card. It's sure you're going to only use that late game, but that's when you probably want to you'd want to reanimate something big, right?
Mm-hmm. And like it reads like a 2 for
Yeah,
1,
it is.
but it could legitimately
Mhm.
be a 3 for 1. Like they attack,
Hmm.
you kill their creature, reanimate a creature, and like win, eat an attacker. That could happen.
Mm.
Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, even if you don't have X5 or more, like this type of thing, there was a card that was just sort of that first part called Deathwind. And like it's an alright removal spell because, it kills cheap things cheaply and it can kill expensive things. And like that's kind of enough to make it pretty good removal. I mean, it's not the best, but pretty good. And yeah, with everything
Mhm.
considered, I think this card's like really amazing. I'm gonna give it 9.5.
Hmm.
Okay, this is a really interesting card. We've got Geth, Bane of Contracts For one black black, you get a 3/4 legendary creature, Phyrexian zombie. Other creatures you control get -1/-1. Oof. Um, but it says one black black and tap. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains, if this creature would leave the battlefield, exile it instead of playing it anywhere else. Activate it only as a sorcery.
Like, it's nice that it's consistent reanimation, but that -1/-1 is a big deal, I think. Especially in limited, where you're really just going to play old school, just try to have big creatures and attack with them. And I don't know. I feel like this isn't that exciting. It's a 3 mana 3/4, but with a really big penalty for existing. It's a, I would say, 4.5.
Yeah, it's like this card's so hard to evaluate. Like, there's certainly some decks you shouldn't even consider this. Like, if you are trying to be a might sacrifice deck, like, no, you're just gonna
Mhm.
destroy yourself by playing this. It's gonna wipe out all your mites, kill all your creatures you're trying to sacrifice and everything. So it's pretty terrible. Um, so like then the question becomes like, how can we make returning a creature card every turn good? And I would think the answer is like milling yourself, milling big creatures. And I just don't really see you being able to do that. Um, so yeah, I don't really like this. Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 4 too. Like it seems like it could be spicy in other formats like Commander. This could be a spicy Commander, honestly. Like
Mhm.
mill yourself, drop like huge creatures in the graveyard and get them back every turn. It would be pretty crazy. Um, doesn't feel like it's meant for limited though.
Mhm.
All right, next you have Karu Monix, the Rat King. One black black for a 3/3 legendary creature, Phyrexian Rat, with Toxic 1, and your other rats also have Toxic 1. And when it enters the battlefield, look at the top 5 cards of your library, reveal any number of rat cards from among them, put those into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order.
It's honestly, obviously, this is a rat commander. Has nothing to do with limited. It's not designed for limited. It's a 3 mana 3/3 with toxic 1. Anything else is not important in the case in this for the purposes of limited.
Yeah.
So I would say 3 mana 3/3 toxic 1. Okay, you're looking for cards. You're desperate. I'd say it's a 4 or even 3.5. Yeah, it's a filler. You couldn't find any other card or a 3-drop. Here you have one.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go a little higher just because, like, honestly, 3/3 Toxic 1 is kind of big stats, honestly. I'm gonna say 5.5. Um, and who knows? Maybe you'll get a rat. That'd be exciting. There's a couple of rats. All right, next we've got Kinzu of the Bleak Kinzu of the Bleak Coven. Uh, 3 and a black for a 5/4 legendary creature, Phyrexian vampire with flying. And whenever another non-token creature you control dies, you may pay 2 life and exile it. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's 1/1 and has Toxic 1.
This is really good. We've already been talking about wanting sacrifice fodder a bit, and there so here you have one that just generates a lot of that. Whenever a non-token creature dies, pay 2 life, get a 1/1 with that creature's abilities, right?
Yeah,
So depends on if you have a lot of creatures with good ETBs or death triggers or just abilities, or you just want sacrifice fodders. There's a lot of ways this could be really useful and synergistic with your sacrifice mechanics. So I would say this is assuming you're trying to go for that strategy, which is it seems very viable in this set. If you're trying to go for a sacrifice aristocrat strategy, I would say this is a 9. It's a 5 mana, 5/4 flying
Yeah, I mean,
with really good ability.
totally. Yeah, like just the stats alone, excellent. I mean, that's a huge threat. Your opponent's going to have to do something about that. And yeah, the ability is really good. Uh, I mean, kind of in any deck, but like mainly in a sacrifice sort of deck. I'll give it a 9.5, and that point 0.5 that's missing is literally just because it has like no protection. So, dies to
Hmm.
removal. I know. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's really good. All right, next we've got Phyrexian Arena. We've seen this one before. One black, black for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, you draw a card and you lose one life. Simple as pie.
If you're playing black, you want this card. Nothing else to say. You
Yeah.
There is very little to know down there. I cannot see why you wouldn't pick this card if you're trying to go for black. Over basically anything else, unless you somehow luck did not have a good luck and you only had non-creatures and you're missing creatures. This is a 10.
Okay. I'm not gonna
Not
give it a
not
10, but
Yeah. Mhm.
obviously it's very good, and I love playing this in Commander and, Brawl. It's really,
Mhm.
really good. The only reason I'm not gonna give it a 10 is because it's not a bomb. It's card advantage. It's a lot of card advantage, but it's also draining you. It doesn't affect the board. So I'm going to give it an 8.5. I think it's really good, but maybe not the very
Hmm.
best. All right, next we have Vran, Executioner Thane for 1 and a black. It's a 2/2 legendary creature, Phyrexian vampire. And whenever one or more other creatures you control die, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. And this triggers only once each turn.
If you're going for a sacrifice, or maybe a go wide and have a lot of your 1/1, like a might strategy where you're okay attacking with a lot of 1/1s and have some of them be blocked off by your opponent. If you're going for strategies like that, this is a honestly, actually, if you have a lot of small toxic creatures, your opponent will have to decide: do I want to take that 2 life hit or get a poison counter, right? And if you just
Yeah.
have a lot of those 1/1s, this could just be checkmate. Like no matter what your opponent does, they're screwed. And because of that, if that's the strategy you're going for, I would say this is an 8.5. Yeah, an 8.5.
Okay.
It might go
Yeah.
higher, but
It's
I'm
always
trying to
weird.
be
Like,
modest here.
the tough thing about, I feel like, decks in this format is like, you've kind of got to decide, like, are you doing infect? Are you doing like normal health damage? And like a lot of the sacrifice type decks that are relying on mites that have toxic. It's like, I don't know. Like, maybe you don't really care about the toxic on the mites and you just want to, let them die and drain your opponent. Which, yeah, that's totally where you would use this card. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's a 2 minute 2/2, which is, fine. And on top of that, it's probably going to drain your opponent for quite a bit. So yeah, I still, yeah, okay, this can be an 8. Yeah, it's good.
Hmm.
All right, we're on to the 3 mythic rares of this set. We've got Drivnod, Carnage Dominus, which is 3 black black for an 8/3 legendary creature for Phyrexian Horror. And if a creature dying causes the triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time and it has Phyrexian Black. Exile 3 creature cards from your graveyard to put an indestructible counter on this.
So, my memory is really bad. How many dying triggers have we seen? Like roughly.
So we've seen like
I
creatures that when they die they make a might. When they die they proliferate. Um,
Yeah,
we just saw Bran like draining the opponent extra when a creature dies, or like that one that makes a one it makes like a 1/1 copy of creature when your thing dies. There's a lot of stuff triggering on dying. But
like
specifically in like if you're picking the sacrifice oriented kind of stuff.
yeah, I'd give this card in limited. My instinct is just to give it something like an 8. I think I would normally give it. I would want to give it higher if I knew how consistent I can get 3 creatures in my graveyard.
Yeah, like
In
that.
my mind, you're probably playing a sacrifice your creature or yeah, sacrifice your creature type of deck because that seems like one of the main themes of black here. If you're doing so, you'll be able to give that creature indestructible, especially if you're playing a lot of like dying trigger effects, which is why you do want to pick this card in the first place.
Yeah.
If that's a strategy you're playing and you want to pick this card, so like yeah, my 8 out of 10 is not a general rating on the card. It's basically when I give a rating for a card, it's kind of like how good would this be in a specific strategy and how viable that strategy is in the first place in the set. If you're trying to
Mhm.
go for a very hard to accomplish strategy, yeah, no card is going to have a high rating. Basically, I that 8/3. If you do manage to get an indestructible on an 8/3, I think that could be huge.
Yeah, like, and it's
Like
free,
really,
no mana if you just have those three counters in your graveyard. Yeah, 8/3
yeah,
indestructible, that's fucking terrifying. But if you don't have the indestructible, it kind of sucks. Like, that can trade with really cheap creatures.
yeah, and making your dying triggers trigger twice might not be that huge from the cards I've seen in this set.
Yeah,
How
like,
likely are you to find those cards?
it takes some work. Uh, so yeah, I guess I
Mhm.
wouldn't give this, like, the highest possible rating, but, like, big potential. You can get huge value. 8/3 indestructible is crazy. Um, and like it's not too hard to imagine getting three creature cards in your graveyard. Like that could happen for sure. Especially by the time you're playing this on like turn 5, 6, 7. So yeah, I mean I think it's good. Alright, next we've got Phyrexian Obliterator, which costs black, 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 black for a 5/5 creature Phyrexian Horror with trample. And it says whenever a source deals damage to Phyrexian Obliterator, that source's controller sacrifices that many permanents.
That's a 10. That's a 10. If you're
Yeah.
like you probably want to play mono, you'd probably want to play mono black if you're playing this card, or it's really risky playing dual colors in limited. You know,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's a 10.
I mean, to me, like
That
that black, 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 like takes it off of 10 territory for me. Um, but obviously, like just the text on the card, it doesn't really get much more absurd than that. Like you play this, you win. Like that's about as clear cut as it gets. So I'm gonna give it a 9.5 just because you might struggle to cast it. And I wouldn't recommend playing monocolor. But still, like if you're waiting till late game to play this, still you drop it down, your opponent's not gonna be able to attack you anymore. Um yeah. Alright, next we've got Vraska Betrayal's Sting, which is 4 black and Phyrexian black. So it's completed. Which means if you pay two life for the Phyrexian, enters with 2 less loyalty. But normally it starts with 6 loyalty and it's a legendary planeswalker. Uh, and the 0 is you draw a card, lose 1 life, and proliferate. -2 basically turns a creature into a treasure. And the -9 is if target player has fewer than 9 poison counters, they get a number of poison counters equal to the difference.
I think this is a really good planeswalker. especially if you're playing proliferate. Like, you just get a proliferate for the 0, which is effectively a +1, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're just gonna proliferate yourself, also like Rascal proliferate herself, and you get to draw, and your -2 is a removal, you know,
Mm-hmm.
to and you start with 6 loyalty if you pay 6 mana.
Yeah, and like all your
And
other proliferate ups her loyalty too. It's like,
yeah, and you have it is actually within the realm of possibility to get your, what are they called, the ultimate, no,
yeah,
I don't know, the special, this the -9. And if you do that, that's almost a guaranteed win.
yeah, and yeah, pretty much just one more proliferate will do it. If you like get her to 10, -9, and then 0 next turn, they lose. Uh,
Yeah. So I would say if you're playing proliferate, you'd want this card if you see it. I always feel reluctant to take planeswalkers, so I would say this is a 9.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most important things about a planeswalker is like, can it defend itself? And like with the -2, yeah, it kind of can. I mean, you might need a little bit of help, but like that's going to get rid of the main threat and then just draws you a ton of cards. Has a great payoff if you can just, sort of put your walls up and just keep ticking up. And like there's so much proliferate in this color, and like proliferate's essential part of the strategy in these colors sometimes. So you can grow that loyalty really quickly, get right to that loyalty, get right to that -9, and just GG. Like it's such a clear like win condition card, and I would definitely want this 100% of the time. Like I don't even feel like I need to build around it. It's just so good. Um, I wish I had this on Arena because I would totally throw this in my Super Friends deck, and like with the 0 proliferate ability, that's like very spicy with a lot of planeswalkers. Um, but yeah, in limited, yeah, 9 feels right because it does still just die to being attacked, but it's dang good. All right, so yeah, that's all the black cards in Phyrexia All Will Be One. Uh, Let us know which ones you most want to play with. Thanks for watching.